Are you like him? Always running from conversations about money? I feel like it's chasing you, trying to run you down for not making the perfect decision with money? Believe me, I know trying to wade through our financial journey in our 20s and 30s can feel overwhelming, but there's no need to hide from it. No matter where you're starting from, we're going to break down some simple and actionable steps in your 20s and 30s to hit some key money milestones and steps so you can go from looking like this to this. So let's go inside and break it down. Now that we're back inside, let's dive into the top 3 strategies that we need to make sure we're doing with our money as we begin our financial journey, especially in our 20s and 30s, so that we can lay the groundwork and the foundation for the big key money milestones that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the video. The first strategy for laying this groundwork and foundation, and it's not super sexy, but it's super important, is budgeting. And if I were to ask you, do you know how much money you have coming in every month and how much money you have going out every month? Can you answer that question immediately without any research? It's super important to have this established so that we can get into the strategies 2 and 3. So with budgeting, we can look at a 50-30-20 principle that is pretty common and pretty famous when it comes to personal finance budgeting. And that is 50% of our budget goes to needs, things like housing, whether that be rent or mortgage, food, utilities, electricity, things like that that are essential to our day-to-day living. The 30% in theory goes to wants, and that gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of eating out at restaurants, going to sporting events, and anything fun that you want to do within your day-to-day life. If we're short on cash at the end of the month, this is where we need to make the cuts, especially because it's not required. The last bucket, 20%, is around saving and investing. And that leads us into strategy number 2 when it comes to saving, and that's having enough cash reserves. The first cash principle we really want to be focusing on is hitting that first $1,000 of cash saved. And this isn't enough to cover us in some sort of emergency or something, but it's just enough to have on hand as step 1 if we're not already there. And this is super important because we don't want a small expense to begin to set us back where we have to put it on a credit card that we can't pay and we're carrying high interest debt. So $1,000 of cash is step 1, but not many of you will say, oh, that's super important. But step 2 within the cash bucket of strategy is having a 6-month emergency fund available and having it sit in a high yield savings account. If you don't have a high yield savings account or don't know what that is, it's basically an account that earns at a much higher interest rate than your traditional bank like Chase, Wells Fargo, or Bank of America. Those banks earn interest at about 0.01%. So your money's basically doing absolutely nothing for you. In these high yield savings accounts, currently they're still at around 4%, which is pretty great. It's not enough to make you rich in the future, but it's certainly enough to make it so that your money isn't just hemorrhaging purchasing power. And so that's why we don't want to have a 6-month emergency fund be sitting in a bank account that's doing nothing for us. This 6-month emergency fund is super important in case something unexpected happens, like we lose our job or we have some very significant unforeseen expense. We don't want something like that to just completely derail our whole financial future. Now that we kind of have some of that groundwork laid out with the budgeting as well as how much cash we should realistically be holding, now we get to move into the fun stuff, which is investing for the future, whether that be in retirement accounts or just short to midterm savings that we want to be investing for big purchases. Because don't we all want a house someday? I mean, in my 20s, I certainly dream of it one day. But so let's start with my favorite all-time investment account, and that's a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is a way to contribute post-tax money, so money you've already paid taxes on, into this account, and that's geared towards retirement. You're able to contribute $7,000 here in 2025, and that money grows tax-free, and you're able to pull it out tax-free after you're 59 and a half. The money that you invest, so that $7,000 that you're able to contribute here in 2025, you can technically pull that out anytime you want, but you can't put it back in, which makes it something that you want to stay away from pulling out at all cost. The money that you gain on top of that you can't touch until you're 59 and a half. But people get confused sometimes in thinking that all of their money is locked up, but that's not really the case. These accounts, when you contribute that $7,000, you need to go into step number 2, which is actually investing that money and putting it towards something like an S&P 500 index fund or a target date retirement fund somewhere in the future, or even individual stocks you can invest in. Roth IRAs can be opened up very easily in major brokerages like Schwab, Vanguard, and Fidelity, and they take all of 5 minutes to open. These are incredible accounts if you don't already have one opened, and something you should really look into as we're starting out our financial journey. Moving into a second very, very powerful account is a 401k. Here in the United States, a 401k is a very powerful employer-sponsored plan that employees are able to contribute to in a few different buckets. They're able to contribute pre-tax, so the money that you contribute, you get a tax deduction on. So if I'm making $100,000 and I contribute $10,000 to my 401k, my taxable income is $90,000. You can also have a Roth 401k with some employers. And it's the same concept as the Roth IRA, where you pay taxes on the money you contribute upfront, that money grows tax-free, and that whole amount you're able to take out later down the road, and you don't have to pay another cut. Really powerful stuff. The other great thing about 401ks is that there's typically a company match. So typically in these plans, if you contribute 6%, you get a dollar for dollar or sometimes 75 cents on the dollar match. And so you're getting this free money just for working and saving towards your future. Not only will your future self thank you for the money that you invested, but that free money is just icing on the cake. We really want to be making sure we're taking advantage of that free money. Now you might be saying, Colin, I know these are great retirement accounts that I've just now learned of, but what do I do for something I'm saving in the short to midterm, like that house that you're dreaming of? That's when we can look at an individual brokerage and setting it up also in something like Schwab, Vanguard, or Fidelity. Those are super simple to set up, and you can invest in the same sort of things that you would in typically your Roth IRA or your 401k, like index funds and target date retirement funds. And this allows you to actually use that money, not only the principal, the money that you invest, but the money it grows to, towards these midterm purchases. They're not as tax efficient as these Roth IRAs or 401ks, as you pay taxes on the dividends, the gains, and whether or not they're short-term or long-term holdings. It's still a good problem to have, because if you're paying taxes on growth, you're still having growth, right? That's a good problem to be having, meaning that you're making money. Depending on the time horizon that you're investing this money for, determines whether or not you want to have it in this actual investment account versus a high yield savings account. So somewhere in, if it's a 5 to 10 year range that you're saving for, it's probably a pretty good idea to invest it. However, if it's short term, like 6 months to 2 years, there's a lot more risk in putting that money in the stock market versus taking some sure gains on the high yield savings account. So that's where you need to balance the risk and think about what you're comfortable with. But this individual investment account is another great bucket that we need to be looking at. And just to get started simply, putting in $50 a month, $50 a week, whatever you can do on top of that Roth IRA and 401k is a great starting point. Another investment account that I want to give a quick shout out to as an honorable mention is a health savings account. These accounts are super, super powerful because they're triple tax advantage, meaning you get a tax deduction on the money you invest, your investments grow tax-free in the account, and when you pull the money out for qualified health expenses, that is also tax-free. These are very, very powerful accounts. However, you do need to be enrolled in a high deductible insurance plan. Now that we have this great foundation laid with all these 3 buckets of strategies, with budgeting, having cash on hand, and actually having these investment accounts opened and putting our money towards them, it's time to celebrate and begin to look at the money milestones that we're well on our way to hitting now that we've laid this groundwork and foundation. And the first one that I want to talk about, which I don't see that many people talk about, is having a positive net worth for the first time. You see, in our 20s and 30s, we're straddled with a lot of different loans and debt, whether it be student loans, car payments, or hopefully not, but credit card debt that we're hopefully trying to slash through and get rid of. We have a lot of liabilities to our name. And so having a positive net worth for the first time, and when I say net worth, that's just looking at our assets, so things that have value, whether it be your investments, your cash, whether you have any real estate, minus our liabilities, meaning anything that's costing us money in terms of loans or debts. And so having a dollar to our name is a big cause for celebration. And so whether or not you've hit that yet, or you're about to hit it, make sure you stop for a second and acknowledge the hard work that you've done to get to this point, because that's a big first step. Our second step of a big money milestone that we want to consider and we want to make sure we celebrate is $10,000. Now, $10,000 may sound like a lot to some of you, and $10,000 you might have already hit, but it's a big stepping stone in our financial journey, because this is a point where you finally get to look back and say, wow, a little expense isn't going to completely derail my future. And $10,000 is a lot of money where I can handle just about any unforeseen expense coming my way. I can weather a loss of a job for a little bit, and I don't have to completely panic and rely on gross high interest debt. The median net worth of people in their 20s is under $8,000. So $10,000 is a big stepping stone, and make sure that you celebrate it if you're coming up on it, or you look back and say, I remember when I hit that, and that was pretty awesome, you're right. All right, with that, we're into money milestone number 3. And this one is the one that people seem to talk about all the time, and one that is so, so important. And that's 6 figures, $100,000. And this one's so important because this is the point when our money begins to compound and actually scale a lot more effectively. Because if we take an example of a 10% growth on our investments with $10,000 invested, we're sitting at $11,000 the next year. $1,000 of growth, especially when you're starting out, huge win. However, if we take that same 10% growth on $100,000, we're at $110,000. That is just so much much more significant and feels so much more powerful along the way. And that growth is just going to continue and scale. And our money begins to grow and compound and snowball out of control. So $100,000 may feel very far away to you right now, but with all this proper foundation laid, you're going to get there in no time as long as we keep saving and investing and looking towards the future and making sure we're handling our business today. Make sure you celebrate it. If you're well on your way, shoot for it. We want to get to it as fast as possible because at the end of the day, compound interest, as Albert Einstein says, is the eighth wonder of the world. So you're going to want to check out this next video right here to more strategically maximize this growth and take advantage of all of this hard work that you're now well on your way to doing. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you over there.